Hey guys, in this video we'll be talking about the benefits of learning the circle of fifths. Coming right up. Hey guys, my name is Vernon and this is Sax Lessons, a channel that is designed to help you learn to play the saxophone and grow as a musician. If you're new to the channel, please remember to subscribe below. So today we'll be talking about the circle of fifths. And on your music journey, you've probably heard someone mention the circle of fifths before. If you've seen some of my previous videos, I've mentioned the circle of fifths a couple of times. So basically, the circle of fifths is an organized way of viewing the 12 keys and understanding the relationship amongst the different keys. Now, there are a lot of benefits to learn the circle of fifths. One of these benefits is to understand which keys are closely related to another key, or which keys are not so related to another key. Now, this can be very useful, especially if you are writing music and you'd like to transition from one particular key to another. Another benefit of the circle of fifths is that it can help you remember how many sharps or how many flats are within a particular key. And it can also help you determine which notes are sharp or flat in a particular major scale or natural minor scale. And another cool thing about the circle of fifths is that it can break down which chords within a major scale are major, minor, or half diminished. And finally, learning the circle of fifths can help you remember chord progressions in jazz standards. Now, this is very useful because oftentimes we forget how the chords progress within a particular song. So learning the circle of fifths can help you with that. So let's go ahead and break down the circle of fifths and show you how the circle of fifths can be used in these various ways. Hey guys, so today we'll be looking at the circle of fifths. So I have here the diagram showing the circle of fifths, and as you can see, it shows all the keys. For now, we'll only discuss the major scales for each particular key, but the circle of fifths also applies to the natural minor scale as well. But I'll go ahead and talk about that later. Now, the reason why it's called the circle of fifths is because if you move around the circle clockwise, it will be moving in fifths. So for example, C major. If we look at the C major scale, the fifth of the C major scale is G. And if we look at the G major scale, the fifth of the G major scale is D, and so on and so forth. Now, the circle of fifths can also be referred to as the circle of fourths, because if you move around the circle counterclockwise, you will be moving in fourths. So again, let's look at the C major scale. When you look at the C major scale, the fourth of the C major scale is F. And so this is why the note after C is F, going counterclockwise. And if we look at the F major scale, the fourth of the F major scale is B flat, and so on and so forth. Now, one benefit to the circle of fifths is that it can help you remember how many sharps or how many flats are within a given key. So let's first start with C major. In C major, there are no sharps or no flats, so that would be 0. Now, if we move around the circle of fifths clockwise, we will be adding one sharp as we pass by each key. So for example, from C major to G major, we will be adding one sharp. So now we know that there's one sharp in the G major scale, but we don't remember exactly which note is sharp. So we can also use the circle of fifths to help us with that. We will begin counting the number of sharps starting with F in order to determine which notes are sharp within a given key. So in this case, for G major, we know that there's one sharp, so we will count 1 starting with F. So 1. We now know that F is sharp in the G major scale, so there is an F sharp in G major. Now let's move on to D major. So when we move on to D major, we'll be adding another sharp. So now we know that there are 2 sharps in the D major scale. But again, we don't remember exactly which notes are sharp. So let's use the same method as before. We will begin counting from F. So 1, 2. Okay, so now we know that there's an F sharp and a C sharp in the D major scale. Let's do one more example, just so that we know and we understand this. Let's move on to A major. So again, we will add one more sharp to the A major scale. So now that is a total of 3 sharps. Now let's figure out which notes are sharp in the A major scale. Let's begin counting from F. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we know that there is an F sharp, a C sharp, and a G sharp in the A major scale. And this pattern can be seen as we go around the circle of fifths. We can also use the circle of fifths to determine the amount of flats in a given scale. So let's again start with C major. C major does not have any flats, so that would be 0. Now when we move counterclockwise around the circle of fifths, we'll be adding 1 flat to the particular key we pass by. So in this case, we'll go from C to F. And when we do that, we will add 1 flat to the F major scale. Now we don't know which note is flat in the F major scale. We can use the same method as before, but we'll start with B. And we will count the amount of flats within a given scale. So in the example for F major, there's only 1. So let's count, starting with B, the amount of flats. 1. Okay, so now we know that there's a B flat in the F major scale. Let's do another example. So let's move from F to B flat. When we do that, we will add another flat to the key signature. So we know that B flat has 2 flats in the major scale. Now we can't remember which notes are flat. So again, we can use the same method as before. Starting with B. 1, 2. Now we know that there is a B flat and an E flat in the B flat major scale. Let's do another example just to be sure we understand this. So moving from B flat to E flat, we will go from 2 flats to 3 flats in the major scale for E flat. Now we want to figure out which notes are flat in the E flat major scale. Again, let's use the method we used before. Starting with B, we'll count 3 because there are 3 flats in the E flat major scale. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we know that there is a B flat, an E flat, and an A flat in the E flat major scale. Another benefit to knowing the circle of fifths is that it can help us determine which keys are closely related. Tones are closely related if they have many notes in common. For example, C and G are very related because they have only one note that is different amongst the major scales. C and F sharp are not so related because they have many notes that are different. In the circle of fifths, it shows you which keys are related based on their position within the circle. The closer the keys are on the circle to each other, the more related they are. And the farther the keys are on the circle, the less related they are. This can come in handy, especially when you're writing music. Let's say you have a song in a particular key and you want to shift to another key to add more variety and add more spice. But you don't want to shift to another key that is so extreme that it is jarring to the listener and turns the listener off. Well, the circle of fifths can help you with that. You can see which keys are closely related, but not so extreme. So, for example, maybe your song is in the key of C. You may want to shift to the key of G instead of the key of F sharp, because the key of G is closely related to C than F sharp is. Now, let's say you want to figure out the chords within a major scale for a given key, but you can't remember which chords are in that major scale. Well, the circle of fifths can help you with that too. So let's look at C major just for simplicity's sake. So in this case, we'll have a C major chord, and the two keys on either side of C will also be major chords. So that will be an F major chord and a G major chord. The next three keys following the major chords going clockwise are minor chords. So in this case, we will have a D minor chord, an A minor chord, and an E minor chord. And the last key that follows the minor chords going clockwise is a diminished chord. So in this case, we have a B diminished chord. This trick can be done with any particular key using the circle of fifths. Let's do another example just to make sure that we understand this. Let's look at the key of F. In the key of F, we will have an F major chord, and the two keys on either side of F will also be major chords. So in this case, we will have a B flat major chord and a C major chord. The next following three chords going clockwise will be minor chords. So in this case, we will have a G minor chord, a D minor chord, and an A minor chord in the key of F. And the last key following the minor chords is a diminished chord. So in this case, we will have an E diminished chord. Oftentimes in jazz standards, chord progressions move in fourths. Now in the circle of fifths, if we look at it counterclockwise, the keys move in fourths. For example, from C to F, that is a fourth. From F to B flat, that is a fourth also. From B flat to E flat, that is a fourth, and so on and so forth. If we can remember how the keys move in fourths, it'll be a lot easier to remember chord progressions in jazz standards. Because many times we will see that these chord progressions in jazz standards move in fourths. Let's look at an example of a jazz standard where the chords are moving in fourths. So here we have the jazz standard, All the Things You Are. Now let's look at the first 8 bars of the song. You can see from G to C, that is a fourth. From C to F, that is a fourth also. From F to B flat, that is a fourth. From B flat to E flat, that is a fourth. And from A to D, that is a fourth. So you can see that chord progressions moving in fourths is quite frequent and quite common. Another instance where this happens is the following bars. From D to G, that's a fourth. From G to C, that's a fourth. And from C to F, that's a fourth. This also happens in the last 4 bars of the song, All the Things You Are. From C to F, that's a fourth. From F to B flat, that's a fourth. And it goes to the turnaround. A to D, that's a fourth. And then D to G once again, that's a fourth. So it returns to the beginning of the song in fourths. In jazz, you will see a lot of these 2-5-1 progressions. And really, these 2-5-1 progressions are just movements in fourths. These chords are progressing in fourths. So if we remember the circle of fifths and go counterclockwise, it will make it a lot easier for us to remember how keys move in fourths. Now, you may be wondering about the natural minor keys and if the circle of fifths also can help with those. And the answer is yes. If we look at each particular major key and take the relative minor, we can apply the circle of fifths to those natural minor keys. So for example, C major, the relative minor is A minor. From G major, it is E minor. From D major, the relative minor is B minor, and so on and so forth. Now remember, the relative minor will have the same notes as their relative major key. So there's no difference in the notes. So all that we've said about the major keys also applies to the relative minor keys. Moving clockwise, each relative minor key will have one additional sharp. So E relative minor will have one sharp, B relative minor will have two sharps, F sharp relative minor will have three sharps, so on and so forth. And the same thing goes for counterclockwise. D relative minor to F major, there's one flat. G relative minor to B flat, that's two flats. C relative minor to the E flat major, that is three flats, and so on and so forth. So this can be especially useful if you're writing a song and you would like to shift your song from a major key to a minor key or vice versa. And you're trying to find a key that is closely related to whatever key you're in originally. So for example, maybe your song is in A minor and you would like to shift to a major sounding key. So the most ideal transition would be from A minor to C major because they have the same exact notes. Switching from A minor to F sharp major would not be so great because these keys have many notes that are very different. And so this could cause a lot of harsh sounding tension since these keys are not closely related. The circle of fifths can be a useful tool when it comes to understanding the relationship of keys to one another. It can also help with remembering how many sharps or how many flats are within a given major scale or natural minor scale. And the circle of fifths can help you with music composition because now you have a better understanding of which keys are closely related. And the circle of fifths can even be applied to learning chord progressions in jazz standards because oftentimes you will find that the chord progressions in jazz standards move in fourths. As you can see, the circle of fifths makes it easier for us to understand certain nuances of music, and this is a good reason why we should learn it. Well, that's all guys. I hope you had a fun time learning about the circle of fifths. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. And also, don't forget to subscribe below. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one, and I send you good vibes. Bye. Take care.